It's Thursday, December 11th, 2014. I'm Rem.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, buses.
Beep, beep.
Let's do this. It was either that or torture, and you probably didn't want to hear us to talk about torture.
It would be torturous.
So, I explained this to Scott a while ago, and a thing happened that's happened many times over the years where Scott asks a question, and I start answering, and I say a bunch of things. And then later, Scott acts like I never actually told him what the answer to that question was because he didn't actually listen to the words I said.
You were definitely saying something.
You said...
I knew you were saying some words. I was just not listening to them
You
at all.
said, "What are you doing over there?" And I explained in detail what I was doing over there. So, what do you think I was doing in the hallway?
Peeing on the floor.
Yeah, so basically what happened, we had some nice rugs that we used for the rabbits to run out in the hallway. And they were nice rugs and they worked fine.
All right, the rugs you talked about yesterday.
I talked about them today because you asked me what I was doing, and I assumed that you hadn't listened to me yesterday. So
I didn't listen. I didn't listen to you today. Is when I didn't listen.
So we got these rugs, and I went to pick one up because it was kind of dirty, and I vacuumed it, and it didn't quite clean it enough. So I decided I'm just gonna pick it up and take it out and shake it on the balcony. And I go to pick it up, and it's stuck to the floor.
Uh-oh.
So I investigate a little bit. It looks like the latex and other things backing on the rug has just fucking rotted away and kind of fused to the hardwood, and it was a giant mess.
Well, didn't you know that's one of those auto-adhesive rugs that turns into a carpet for free?
Nah. So I had already torn it up, so I couldn't really put it back, so I threw it away. And then I proceeded to try to figure out how to remove this residue from my floor without paying anyone a lot of money.
Alcohol?
Yeah, no, alcohol has no effect. I tried a number of different solvents, and here's what works best. Number 1, water.
Okay.
Number 2, which is actually a much better solvent and works super well, benzene, which I'm not going to use because we know better now as humans not to fuck around with benzene.
Dish soap.
Nope, no effect. Ammonia, vinegar, none of those things any effect. But apparently turpentine is also super effective.
How about your face? Just like get down really near and lick it and bite it and...
It's not the worst solution.
Yeah.
So
it'll work slowly, but it'll get the job. Toothbrush?
So basically, there's 2 rugs. The other larger
Daddy
rug, I have chosen not to deal with that for the time being. I'm just leaving that rug where it is. And the rug that I already pulled up, I've spent the last few days with water and a putty knife and a whole bunch of elbow grease. It fucking sucks.
Uh-huh.
However, the good news is there's a chance that actually our renter's insurance covers it. So if they do, I'm probably just still going to deal with it myself. And then we'll just make a claim based on the cost of the remediation and see if we can just get a bunch of money.
Mm.
Or maybe I'll hire someone to do the second half of it.
I just didn't get rugs and scratched up my floor instead.
Yeah,
But it won't matter until I move out. In which case, they'll probably just be like, we're keeping your security deposit. And be like, fine, I don't give a fuck.
Do you have the New York City rug clause in your lease, or is it just our lease?
I think I do.
Yep. A lot of New York leases, a little insight into what it's like to live in New York. They basically have this clause in most New York leases that says something like 80% of the non-bathroom floorage in your apartment must be covered by carpets that are at least like 0.5 centimeters thick.
Mm-hmm.
The actual reason that's there is so that if they want to kick you out, they can go up and be like, look, they didn't cover their floor, and we warned them, and they still haven't bought enough rugs to cover their floor.
Why did I buy this apartment with such a nice floor if I'm going to cover it up? Why did
Exactly.
why did I buy this table if I'm going to cover it up with a tablecloth?
It's I only cover things with the tablecloth because the tablecloth is really nice to use when you're playing a board game.
I cover things with a tablecloth because if there's going to be a huge mess, I'm not about protecting the table. I'm about cleaning it up in 2 seconds by just throwing away the tablecloth.
Throwing away?
Paper tablecloth, yo.
Just take a fabric one. Just throw it in the washing machine.
Same deal. All good.
Yeah, that's fine.
Same deal.
Yeah. So, got any news, Captain?
I do have a news. So, yet again, for like the 5th time in our lives, ye Pirate Bay is let down.
However, this time it might be the end.
I mean, it could always be the end.
Well, no, like one of the founders.
But something else will come out.
One of the founders
the one
said
who just
something.
got out of jail.
The one he basically said, yeah, it was only intended to last 10 years. The Pirate Bay has increasingly been funded by increasingly abhorrent ads, so much more important than I could have ever imagined they would be,
Yeah.
that we need a new paradigm. So fuck it. Next generation, pirate away in a new fashion.
We'll pirate away in a new fashion, no problem.
However, this inconvenienced me in the short term because most of the shows I'm watching, that the pay for HBO thing still isn't actually available yet. So I really can't watch a lot of the things I watch except on the Pirate Bay.
I mean, I just need a new place to get torrents from. I'm sure
Yeah.
that there's plenty of them.
Well, torrents of what? What are you even watching?
Adventure Time,
Yeah, Adventure Time,
South Park.
South Park,
That's the only things I really use Pirate Bay for.
The Amazing World of Gumball.
Don't watch that.
You really should. I love that show. Is actually one of my favorite cartoons now.
Yeah.
Though Rick and Morty, you can actually watch for free at least.
Whatever.
I can't believe you haven't watched Rick and Morty either.
How much Yellow Pedal have you watched?
Like 12 episodes.
All right, so shut up.
How much Sailor Moon Crystal have you watched?
1 episode.
How much Breaking Bad did you watch?
0.
Game of Thrones?
0.
All right. Daily Show?
I watched like the clips when someone links to it.
John Oliver?
All same.
Oh. Crash Course?
None.
Really? You haven't watched Crash Course? It's, that chemistry show you like? Take that and make it 100 times better and about things you actually care about.
I care about chemistry a lot.
I think you'll care about the Mongols and such much more.
Are they breaking down my shitty wall?
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this because the one thing that the Pirate Bay did not do, every iteration of getting information to places for free in a way that doesn't require trust and direct knowledge. Like, you can trust and direct knowledge with IRC if you want. But basically every way has had like one fatal flaw, and we fixed fatal flaws along the way. But right now, the fatal flaw of current torrents is that there has to be a place where you find the tracker. So what we really need is a distributed tracker system.
We do sort of have that. That exists.
Yeah, but how do you get to the entry point to a tracker?
You have to, figure it out.
So there's a lot of people talking about making basically a torrent web browser, which is the future. Some smart person will make that unless the drink or die spirit is good and truly dead.
Whatever.
Yeah. So I don't think the Pirate Bay is going to bet on it. You want to bet if it's going to come back?
I don't know if it'll come back. So here's the thing that's really interesting about how it went down. So the Pirate Bay claimed that it was up in so many places that were all secret that it would never be able to be taken down.
But as far as I can gather, it's pretty much just up in Sweden.
Yeah. Secondly, I remember a rumor happening a long time ago that sounded pretty plausible, right? In that in Sweden, similarly to the U.S., the people in the legislative branch can't be if you're a congressperson in the U.S., you can't really be charged with crimes you commit in the Congress, right? So it's like if you're just lighting up some meth in the Capitol, they can't do anything about it. So similar thing in Sweden. There was a rumor that hey, they'll just set up the Pirate Bay in the Swedish government building,
which would have been brilliant,
and they wouldn't be able to do anything about it.
But no, apparently it was in a data center in Nacka.
Yeah, the when the news first came out, they were like, they won't say where they went to go and take down the servers. So I was like, ooh, maybe it was the Swedish government thing after all. But it wasn't.
Yep. Apparently, Super Bay is down as well, as is Bayim.
Yeah, well, they were all running in the same...
So Bayim, your leading site for Digimon porn, is finally gone.
Well, I mean, Imgur really means you don't need Bayimg.
Yeah. Bayimg was never actually useful. From day one, it was just Digimon porn.
It would have been useful if Imgur did not exist. It would have been...
No, because even then, it was nothing but Digimon porn. I mean, it was hard to use.
It doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter if what Imgur isn't about what's on there. It's about you use it for yourself.
Yes, but Imgur was easy to use, and it wasn't just a haven of Digimon porn.
Well, maybe if more people used Bayimg, and because Imgur didn't exist.
In a non-Digimon porn fashion.
You're just obsessed with Digimon porn.
Go find the episode of Geeknights where we talked about Bayimg when it first came into existence, because
I sort of forgot it existed until they mentioned that it was down.
So did I. Because in that episode live, I was like, ooh, this will be a way to distribute. And I clicked on it live on the show. And I'm pretty sure it was nothing but Digimon porn. And I was like aghast at this.
Yep.
And then we just talked about that for a while.
Oh, well, Pirate Bay, you will either be back or...
Pirate Bay had the longest run of any of these things ever.
The one thing about Pirate Bay, that I will miss if it doesn't come back is that they would promote good things on the homepage.
Well, I mean, that's how I found that This Is What Happens When You Call the Police music video that's pretty relevant lately.
Like the front page of the Pirate Bay, like promoted things that, were good. And they, it was like basically the thing of the day of awesomeness.
Yep, here we go. Peter Sunday, the Pirate Bay.
He's the guy who just got out of jail.
Should stay down.
Yep. Well, I mean, he's basically he's definitely for
Quote, the Pirate Bay has
pirating.
been raided again.
Again.
That happened over 8 years ago last time. That time, a lot of people went out to protest and rally in the streets. Today, few seem to care, and I'm one of them.
Mm-hmm.
The site was ugly, full of bugs, old code, and old designs. It never changed except for one thing, the ads. More and more ads were filling the site, and somehow, when it felt unimaginable to make those ads more distasteful, they somehow ended up even worse.
Yeah, I don't know who was running the Pirate Bay or how they got a hold of it, but the people who originally made it, like Peter here, they didn't cover it in ads. They were doing it for the sake of pirating. So I don't know how these other people came to possess it, but they definitely were in it for the money.
Or maybe,
therefore,
maybe the reason it was so resilient, you could use that money to fund a lot of different data centers and servers and shit.
Maybe.
It's hard to say.
I don't know. Maybe they just needed the money to fund to keep it up, and they were desperate.
So we either need distributed torrents or we need data centers on satellites and on barges in international waters.
Let's just code it ourselves, or let's set up Waste.
Rewrite Waste? Someone's going to have to rewrite Waste if we want
Why
to...
don't we get the guy who wrote Waste, the Winamp guy? What's his name?
Why don't we, actually? I actually forgot his name, so I feel really bad and dumb about that because he's one of the more important people in the history of the modern internet.
Yeah.
Nullsoft guy.
Call him up.
Nullsoft guy. I'm just searching for Nullsoft guy. Justin Frankel.
That's the guy.
That is the guy.
Why don't we call him up?
I'm glad that Nullsoft guy as a search actually turns it up.
Yes.
Yes. So, in other news, there's a bunch of news around the same topic, and I don't want to cover all the ground we've covered on this before. So, I'm going to skip a lot of things I would normally say here. So, Scott, you don't need to be like, oh, this again. So, one, there's a new extension, a modern one for browsers that doesn't just block ads. It clicks on them a random percentage of the time and also acts like it downloaded all of them.
So to cost the people buying the ads money?
And
to make money for the people who are hosting the ads. So if you visit a website, they get money.
It also hides the fact that you're running ad blocking software because some sites now disable functionality if you're blocking ads.
Mm-hmm.
And because it clicks randomly, it removes or reduces the value of the data generated from the ad clicks because it fills them with random shit. It looks like it'll even fill out forms with random garbage.
Okay.
So that's interesting, and a lot of people are mad about it. Independently, a bunch of French publishers are filing lawsuits against Adblock Plus on, the grounds, the fraud and all the kinds of stupid things.
Fraud?
Yeah.
What fraud are they committing?
The growing rejection
We
of
promised to block
advertising.
ads and we block them. Fraud.
Yeah, well, that blocking ads while looking at websites is itself fraud. You're the same bullshit argument that just failed.
I mean, that could be described as many things, but fraud is not one of those things it could be described as accurately.
So neither of these things is new. You guys may not pay attention because you just run Adblock and don't think about it, or I know people who are young who don't run Adblock. I don't know how you fucking use the internet.
I definitely don't know how to use it.
I've seen what the internet looks like without an Adblock.
It's bad.
I would not use it if it looked like, well, not the internet, the World Wide Web.
Yes.
To be fair, to talk about this stuff correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But none of this is new. I mean, I was running ad blocking software when I had a modem.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also, well, anyway. So coupled with all this, somehow the advertising industries still make a shit ton of money with online ads.
Of course.
So
Same way that spammers made a shit ton of money, even though they were sending Viagra. Somehow that makes money.
So there are stupid people who click on ads and buy things from ads. And there are also people who aren't stupid, but they click on ads to give money to the person probably who runs the website they like, and they're just stealing money effectively from the person who's, actually bought the ad.
Mm-hmm.
That whole ecosystem has not changed in forever. But there's a couple of articles that have come out recently that have done some investigative journalism and kind of pointed the same thing. It is likely that the majority of ad clicks, at least in the modern internet, are pretty much entirely from organized crime run ad clicking networks that are part of giant global money laundering schemes. Because ad clicks, you know what this is like? In the old days, if you wanted to launder money, what's the most effective way to do it unless you're already rich and in the government?
Open a business and then have legitimate purchases on record for that business.
Okay.
Like, I need to launder $1,000. Well, this barbershop I set up that no one ever seems to come into had like 100 haircuts for $10 each. $1,000 laundered. All good.
The barbershop. That's the reason why, especially in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, there were so many barbershops that somehow managed to stay open in the shittiest parts of town. But
this liquor store just managed to sell so much goddamn liquor.
Well, liquor's hard because it's a physical commodity you're selling. The point is, it's a business where there is no real way to prove whether or not you're doing business other than a stakeout. So, in the modern world, you don't need a barbershop because there are two things that are ready-made to launder money, and there's basically no way to ever get caught. Number one, ads online.
Yep.
Number two, DLC in shitty video games.
That's a good one.
If I was going to launder money today, I would make a free-to-play game that was garbage, but had people playing. Don't care if it makes money or not. People who needed to launder money would basically buy cards with cash or whatever they would do to buy items in the game. My game company has nothing but clean money.
Except Apple's taking a cut.
Oh no, Apple's taking a small percentage of my illegal free money to turn it legal.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good plan. That would probably work for quite some time.
I don't think it's a good plan. I think it's happening. I think it is a huge part of the freemium gaming industry.
Sure.
I'm dead serious.
But at the same time, if you did that, the one thing that our justice system is actually very good at is going after mafias. That's like their special move.
They just arrested another Gambino in New York, like today.
Yeah, all of the laws that we have, like RICO Act, et cetera, were all originally designed to go after organized crimes, right? Which is why they're also good at going against gangs, because those are organized crimes. And they're really bad at going against unorganized things like anonymousness.
Whoa, yeah, today it looks like 30 FBI agents and Italian authorities and Interpol raided a New York apartment and caught one of the last free Gambino underbosses.
Sure. That's
Police, look, it's Counter-Strike. Anyway.
Right, but that's like the thing that they are ridiculously good at because they were designed to do that.
However,
so that's why anything that they do that doesn't fit that, they usually try to be like, there's a leader here who's, they try to, make it so that there is some sort of organization or conspiracy or something.
However,
so that they can use their anti-mafia technology.
By doing this with gaming technology, like DLC and in-app purchases and things like that, technology makes it almost impossible to prove malfeasance because you are actually literally selling real things that are a legitimate economy on their own. So it's almost as like you have a store or a factory that for free is making things that you're actually selling for real money. Except that factory doesn't cost you anything to run, so it's free money laundering. And with encryption and deniability, this makes it an order of magnitude easier to launder money.
Listen, laundering money was never the problem. Getting the money to launder is always the problem.
Yeah, but however they do that, I'm convinced.
Selling drugs?
Perhaps selling
in the community?
Lucy's. Yep. But Black Dynamite. So I really, really, really think that online advertising is hugely bolstered as an industry by organized crime. And I suspect if you are able to crack down on the organized crime that is likely laundering money and or using this network for other purposes and remove it from advertising, that online advertising as an industry would fall fucking apart and there would be a big disaster.
Well, they would still exist in, cases where it's like the big companies buying ads. But that's about it.
Yeah, but I think like a big chunk of advertising would disappear and the internet would just radically be destabilized.
For example, things like the Pirate Bay that have a million shitty ads all over them that no one ever clicks on and everyone hates. No one's buying those ads. You ever wonder why those ads are mostly for porn and casinos?
Yup.
Right? It's like,
I mean, one of these articles estimates
games.
that Facebook ads, 80% of the clicks are bots.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. So all these things together are really interesting, and this is a world that more investigative journalism needs to be done. I don't want to name names because I don't want to be guilty of libel or slander or anything, but there's some specific game companies I actually suspect of doing this, like for real. But anyway. Things of the day. Scott's is super serious, so I'm going to give you the non-serious one first.
How non-serious could it be?
So Jackie Chan, super funny dude, super funny movies. I'm a big fan of Jackie Chan movies in general. I'm also a big fan of Kung Fu movies in general. But this is a video where someone analyzes Jackie Chan films and explains basically how to do action comedy, why Jackie Chan did it very well, why modern movies are awful at it, and it's just a really good 10-minute video that goes into a lot of depth and was made by someone who's very observant, very intelligent, very knowledgeable.
I mean, really what it comes down to is that modern movies have an action scene and a comedy scene, and they don't do them in the same scene.
Yep.
Or even if they do them in the same scene, the comedy and the action will be not the same thing.
They're not integrated. They're completely separate.
There'll be someone will do some punching and kicking and then stop it like Spider-Man. Well, even in comics, Spider-Man doesn't really merge his action and
puts
comedy.
His butt up there hanging, then he says his witty one-liner.
He says his witty one-liner, and then he fights, and then he stops, and then but his fighting itself is not funny. Jackie Chan, his thing was, his actual action of fighting was in itself comedic.
Yep, and you know what? Actually, our friend the juggler, Luke Burridge, explained this with a nice analogy. He was talking about doing a new bit in juggling, and a bunch of us were like, you should do the bit like this. And he was like, you Americans, you always have, if you want to do a juggling routine, you always think of it as you're going to do some juggling, and you're also telling jokes and things, and they're separate. The whole point is that the juggling itself is the joke, and you're augmenting it.
Exactly.
So this video is great, and if you watch this is why I don't find a lot of the action movies that you guys like to be particularly entertaining or funny, even when they're intending to be funny.
I mean, it's not like action comedy is like a particular thing that I'm like mega into, but it's just one more example of reasons I hardly ever watch any new movie ever.
Yep. I mean, one of the it talks about how
in any genre of any kind.
Even good modern action movies in the US at least usually have a ton of jump cuts, and they do all these things to obfuscate the actual, like Transformers. Those action scenes in the Transformers movies are just a bunch of nonsensical garbage flying around the screen. Jackie Chan is a long cut of him hurting himself physically.
Yep. All right, so serious thing of the day. So I know a lot of people out there, they just so mad about politics and shit all the time, and I'm just like, shut up. Everybody, all you guys keep doing is saying the same thing over and over again for no reason with no effect whatsoever. So, I have found a key piece of evidence to support my position.
Yep. This video, other than the fact that the word Negro comes out in the first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
As does the word Arabia.
Yep.
But otherwise, this video might as well have been made today.
It is 1965.
That wasn't that long ago.
It was long ago. So, in 1965, Mr. Malcolm X, appeared on the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Company, and a bunch of white dudes asked him a bunch of questions.
A lot of backhandedly insulting questions.
Pretty much the same kind of questions you'd get from a white right-wing dude on Fox News today.
But coached with a nice sort of Canadian sensibility, very, very masking.
The one major difference is that unlike, say, a Fox News of today, these white dudes actually shut up and didn't say anything or interrupt Mr. X while he was talking. And Mr. X, while I don't agree with everything Mr. X stood for in his day, I'm not exactly a Muslim, quite the opposite, in fact.
Wait, is
an atheist Jew is pretty much as opposite of Muslim as you can get.
Are you implying that atheism or that Judaism is the opposite of Islam?
The combination of the two is the opposite of Islam. He pretty much argues his point in an intelligent, rational, educated fashion, the same way that we would argue our points in an intelligent, rational, educated fashion.
Even though lately I've been giving up and just calling people ignorant, bad people.
Right, because there's pretty much no point. Even though he did this back in the day on TV, it didn't matter. All your yelling and whining doesn't actually change anything, and that's part of what Mr. X has to say. He says, look, I love Martin Luther King saying, but it's not getting anything done. And all you guys blocking traffic, it's like, look, I love you blocking traffic out there. I totally agree with you. I hate cars too, so I'm actually kind of happy that you're fucking up the traffic. But notice, not a goddamn thing has happened or changed as a result of it. That is a tactic
So, Scott,
that is not effective.
Thus, the ever-present question whenever you bring up one of these things, what is to be done?
Murder all the rich people.
Pretty much. Well, no.
Wait for the old
there was a time in your life, Scott,
Yep.
when you had a different answer to that question. Do
Yep.
you remember what your answer used to be?
Wait for the rich people and old
Nope.
people to die.
Nope. Even earlier than that.
Don't give a shit. Just live your life.
Destroy television.
That's also a good move.
We were pretty serious about maybe a bunch of nerd terrorists should get together and just one day literally destroy the entire global television infrastructure at once.
The only reason that I don't think that's a good idea anymore is that if we used a method of blowing up satellites, it was hard for the space people to get the satellites up there. It would sort of not be cool to blow them up.
Think of the space people.
We need some way to disable television besides blowing up all the satellites.
I still think the best shot we've got is Lawrence Lessig's thing because, as you can see,
Well, I mean, he
failed,
has correctly identified the ultimate root of the entire problem, but he has not found an effective solution because I don't know if there is one.
What did he say? The whole point of this first initiative
is to try to find.
Was to gather data, and he just published all the data they gathered onto how to mess with elections.
And it is now appears to be even more hopeless.
Yeah, because seriously, the gist of the statistics and the research was number of dollars equals winning election. Literally nothing else mattered.
Yes.
So we need to gather dollars to fight against the people who have all the dollars.
And we only gathered like 15, 12 million.
15 million, not a lot.
We're up against hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
The only way that this can possibly be fixed is if one of the ridiculously rich people turns coat against the other ridiculously
Not just turns
rich
coat,
people.
but does your classic cling to the other people and set themselves on fire, burn their fortune.
Yes. As well as their own.
Yeah. So that was depressing.
There you go.
But also, if you don't know a lot about Malcolm X, which I suspect a lot of you young kids probably
They
don't,
might not even know who it is. There is a movie. It's not bad.
It's pretty good, but
It's not 100% historically accurate as any movie would be, but I figure you punk kids who know nothing,
you know what?
I'm lucky if I can get you to watch the movie.
It is accurate in one sense. Malcolm X has one of the most intense facial expressions, generally, that a human being has ever held as a resting face.
Yeah, pretty much.
In the meta moment, the book club book is Watership Down. It's about a bunch of rabbits, and it's really good. And I've moved on. I'm reading the Yiddish Policemen's Union, and I'll see if I finish that before Scott starts Watership Down.
Okay.
Yeah. We're going to be at PAX South, presenting on Sunday in the Armadillo Theater. Bad Games, an updated version of our old panel, also called Bad Games.
If you can't make it to PAX South, MagFest, same weekend.
Yeah, same weekend. And then not too long after that, we're going to be at PAX East. And then
The first weekend of March.
Yep. And tiny chance we're going to go to Genericon after it. I say that because we've not
We've
committed.
been invited to Genericon every year for like a zillion years, and we've never gone to it ever.
Well, I feel bad because
Isn't it a tiny college con
we actually don't
in
even
the cold upstate?
I often don't even respond to emails from conventions that ask us to attend, but
They've kept us on their mailing list all these years, even though we've never once responded to them.
so I'm asking you, the
I
listener.
think some listener went there once, and that's why.
You, the listener, I ask you, will you be at Genericon?
In Rensselaer, New
And
York.
should we go to Genericon? It's up to you. Do you think we should be there? Because kind of thinking about doing it.
Does anyone who plays Netrunner going to be there? Because then, even if it's garbage, you can save my weekend, and we can make it Netrunner weekend.
Or we'll just play Wizard over and over and over again.
Anyone who wants to play Wizard, will you go?
Yeah.
And play Wizard all weekend if it sucks.
Otherwise, watch all their stuff on YouTube.
Yeah. Utena, it's happening.
Yes, we recorded another episode of Geeknights Presents Utena. I'm editing it currently. I'll put it up as soon as I can, but I'm skiing Saturday and going to a party on Sunday, so we'll see when I actually get it done.
Break the world shell.
Except the world shell's cracking, according to episode 13.
All the easier for you to break it.
Yeah, actually.
So get cracking.
So, real talk, guys. Buses are fucking awful.
Well, mostly. I mean, there are occasionally good buses.
Very rare, and even then, the best buses are at best tolerable.
Yes. Basically, the history of buses is a history of being bad on purpose. So, I don't know if anyone here has watched Roger Rabbit.
The movie, Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
We
We've
did an
done a show
episode
on
about it. You should have seen it by now. Roger Rabbit is actually a true story, not the anime cartoon part. The replace the streetcar with the bus part. Basically, what happened was, way back in the day, there were streetcars everywhere, and they were fucking awesome. And people used them all the goddamn time. So people who lived in cities didn't own any fucking cars because they didn't need that shit.
Yeah.
Just like me today, right? Only a lot more people didn't. Now in the city, even on my street, sure, I don't have a car, but this car is parked all the way up and down the street and auto shops all near my, right? So how did that come to be? Why was the streetcar, which was here just decades ago, now gone? It was like every city, even medium and small cities like Rochester, New York, had streetcars, and they don't have them anymore. Well, what happened is GM and other car companies in the U.S. realized, we could sell a lot more cars if people actually needed them to get around and couldn't just use a streetcar or some shit. So they bought the streetcar owning companies, which were private companies. They weren't like the MTA, some public thing you couldn't buy. And they just shut them down. And then they said, I guess we have to replace these with something. So they replaced them with buses. So, okay, people just use the bus instead of buying cars. What did they accomplish? Well, number one, since they're car companies and not train companies, they made buses. They didn't make train cars. And number two, it also, buses use roads. And if they made roads for buses, well, you're making roads for cars, which is good for them.
Yep.
Making things like superhighways for their cars. And three, they made the bus schedule, since they own the bus companies, really shitty on purpose. And they made the way buses work just shitty on purpose so that you would ride the bus and hate it and then get a car to save you from the horrible bus.
And meanwhile, even if they hadn't done that, because of the rise in cars, the buses got stuck in traffic, thus defeating the purpose. Buses are way less comfortable than streetcars because of bus suspensions.
Yep.
Everything is wrong with them. And now today, Scott and Emily and I live in literally one of the only places in North America you can live and not own a car. And even then, not all the parts of this place can be lived in without a car.
Even the rest of the world, somehow this problem spread because I guess, they looked at us as a model, right? We did invent the car, right? The Model T and whatnot. So, but the rest of the world pretty much, copied the model of America. Like, you want to be awesome like America? Got to have roads everywhere.
So Gothamist, which is basically, you should not read The Gothamist unless you live in New York. But if you live in New York...
You will get the wrong idea about New York if you read this without living here. If you live here, then you will understand these articles the way they are meant to be understood.
Yeah, these articles are this is real New York for New Yorkers, and literally without that context.
If you don't live here, it's not for you.
Yeah. But they recently had they linked to the survey of average bus speeds in New York.
2 miles an hour.
Yeah, so they listed the buses in terms of how fast and slow they go. A good number of buses average less than 2 miles an hour.
Yep.
Meaning I walk faster than most buses in New York.
Yep.
And these are the buses I would take to go cross town. I remember once I was walking to the Javits for a New York Comic-Con, and my options were fucking walk there or take the M42 bus.
Soon we'll have a new option.
The M42, not because we'll ever
go. You mean the M34?
No, I mean the M42.
Okay.
Take the M42 across 42nd Street all the way to the end, and then walk down a little bit and you get to the top of the Javits.
Oh, okay.
Way more convenient than taking the M32 all the way across or taking the E-train to Penn or whatever and then walking through that fucking underpass and then walking forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was walking. I saw the M42 bus. I was like, maybe I'll just get on that. That'll get me there faster. And then I didn't have my Metro card and I was like, yeah, whatever, fuck it. So I just kept walking. And yeah, I beat the bus there. In fact, I passed a second M42 bus while I was walking.
Mm-hmm.
So buses in New York are useless, and the few people who have to commute on buses, I feel really bad for you. If I had to commute on a bus in New York, I'd buy a car.
Mm-hmm.
For real, I'd buy a car.
Yeah. So the last time I tried to take the city bus, the subway wasn't working. It wasn't going up, so I was here basically at Rim's house, effectively, same area.
Oh, yeah.
And the subway would not go north to where I live. So
and there's only 2 lines that go where you live.
There's a bus that actually takes a more direct route.
Yeah, the bus that Emily always wants us to take to visit Scott because the bus's route goes literally right from our apartment to right next to Scott's house. It's great.
Yeah, if you take the subway is a bit east from both of us. So I have to then, if I take the subway, which is what I usually take, I then have to walk a bunch west to get to where I live. The bus stops right at my apartment effectively, like a block away. So why not take this bus? Well, I went over to take this bus, and of course there was mad crowding on the bus stop because no one could take the subway, and they were trying to do this. But even without that crowding, the bus comes like once every 20 minutes or something. The subway comes like every 5 minutes, even less than that.
Yeah, during rush hour, a 7 train comes every minute.
Like a train comes in, the train goes out. Another train comes in.
Yeah, like there's a
another
train queued up to come in as soon as the next train leaves.
And the train carries a zillion people, and the bus carries like 50 people at best. That's a crowded-ass bus with 50 people on it. You're lucky, right? Maybe 30 people on the bus.
And even then, when you get on a bus, this is the biggest problem I have with buses, and why even if we fix a lot of the problems with buses, this fundamental flaw makes buses still a bad idea. To ride a bus that you don't ride every single day, you have to pay attention for much of the time you're on the bus to make sure you get off at the right place. You have to know the neighborhood you're going to.
You have to know where the bus stop is and push the thing at the right time.
It's not like the bus tells you where it is. You have to look out the window and be like,
next stop, something. We are currently at this stop. You know, you have to like know the bus route. Like it requires a lot of specialized knowledge to be able to ride the bus. It's not easy.
Or you have to sit and stare at your phone on the GPS and like watch it until you figure out where you are and then get off at the right spot.
Keep looking out the window and you see a stop and you're pretty close to where you want to be. And you're like, well, do I get off here or will the bus stop even closer? I don't know.
The streetcar, the tram, like even
if I stay on it for, it's like, okay, I'm really close to where I am now. If I stay on, how far past where I want to go is the next stop?
Yep, but like a tram network, even in Melbourne, like when we were there for PAX Australia last year, the tram network there is super extensive. But you know what? Every station, like you knew exactly where you were getting on and off, and it was really easy to actually ride it as a result. You didn't have to pay attention the whole time.
Yep.
So buses are super uncomfortable to ride from the fact that you can't just zone out. On the subway, they go from predefined places to other predefined places. You can look at the subway map and immediately know how to get from point A to point B.
And take a nap.
Exactly.
And then wake up and get off.
Because a thing goes, bung, the next station will be Grand Central Terminal, blah, 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 blah. You know exactly where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the subways are just generally way faster because they don't get stuck in any traffic other than subway traffic.
Yeah. They're also way faster because they're giant, awesome trains.
Yep, and they hold a bazillion people. They're also more energy efficient.
Yeah, let's talk
less
about
polluting.
Well, there's some electric buses out there. Like Seattle has the catenary buses.
Yeah, those buses.
And a lot of buses in New York are all like hybrid electric what's-its.
Yeah, so they can recapture all that braking when they stop at every intersection for an hour.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes there's a bus-only lane on certain roads.
Also, there's
no one's
problem.
ever parked in that or biking in it.
There is another problem that's kind of it's a touchy subject to bring up, but it needs to be talked about. Because the buses suck, the buses are primarily used by lower socioeconomic strata in most places in the U.S.
Well, no, it's because the buses are so in areas.
It's a catch-22.
Yes, in areas where people who don't have a lot of money live, they don't build awesome subways, and if they do build an awesome subway there, it gentrifies, and those people get kicked out of that neighborhood.
Like, they just added a new subway stop on the 7 line by the Javits.
So if you don't have a lot of money, you can't really live in an area that's convenient by subway very easily. So the only thing that's going to help you in your area is bus. Oh, and by the way, you're poor, so you can't buy a car or anything. Right?
So it is not a lie to say that in most parts of New York and most parts of America, buses are ridden by people who don't have a lot of money, which is highly correlated with things like crime.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of shitty things happen on buses way more frequently than they happen on subways and trains.
Yep.
So as a result, as a person, I really try to avoid riding buses. That is one of the many reasons why I try to avoid riding buses.
Your wealth privilege.
Yes.
You don't have to ride the bus.
Exactly.
With the poor people.
If the subway isn't running, I'll actually just take a cab home.
And if you did ride the bus, you wouldn't have to ride in the back because you're white.
What, too soon?
I'm just saying, it's the truth.
Yeah. So
I actually prefer the back of the bus. I never knew why anyone thought the front was better.
Well, what about school buses? The back of the bus is the best.
That's
'cause
what I'm
one,
saying.
Bus driver can't fucking get you when you're back there.
Bus driver can't get you even if you're in the front seat. What are they going to do? Get up and stop driving?
You can rate how cool a kid is in the United States by how far back they're sitting. The coolest kid in any middle school is the one sitting in that short seat next to the emergency exit at the back by himself.
Yep.
That is the
And when they
king-
get off the bus to go home, they open up that emergency exit and jump out and don't give a fuck.
Yep, and the bus driver's like, "Get back here, Jimmy Joe."
It's like, I'm at my house, motherfucker. What you gonna do about it?
Good one. You're gonna
pick
write
my
me up?
You're gonna pick my ass up to go to school tomorrow. That's what you're gonna do.
Yep.
Meanwhile, I'm about to play Nintendo games. Woo!
Yep. The kid sitting in the gimpy short seat at the back of a middle school bus is cock fucking Robin.
That's right. Because if he wasn't, the kid who was would beat him up and kick him out and get in that seat.
Though it's complicated because then after you get a few seats up, the kids who are like 3 or 4 rows up are the least cool kids who are trying to be with the cool kids.
Yep.
And then at the way front are the cool kids who are smart and don't want to be bullied by the shitheads near the back.
The middle distance people are just like the normal kids who don't give a fuck about social whatever. They're just going to school, and those are the normal cool people.
Yep.
Anyway,
that's a lesson in middle school.
So there are some buses that are quality.
Like the express buses that go directly from like a neighborhood in Connecticut to Midtown.
Right. Well, I mean, those are okay, but they're like, for example, the Bolt bus, right? It's a
Bolt bus is barely tolerable and getting worse.
It is getting worse, but it's at least, it gets the job done. I need to get to that city for an extremely low price. It will mostly much more safely than, say, shady Chinatown bus.
Which are all gone now.
Yes, thankfully. Take me to that city in a reasonable fashion. I won't have to. A lot of the problems that you talked about don't exist on there.
Yeah, well, I remember like the few times we took megabuses, like a couple of times shit went down when I was on a megabus that would not have happened on a Bolt bus.
Yep.
But functionally,
the reason is you have to buy your Bolt bus ticket on internet.
Yep. And somehow people haven't figured out how to get that prized A priority boarding.
Yep.
The answer is, if you buy it online, you get A.
No, you get A if you register and log into the Bolt Bus website, then buy the ticket. If you just buy the ticket as like a guest without logging in, then you don't get A.
B.
You get B or C.
And meanwhile, I'm always amazed at all these people who like line up without a ticket, like trying to get onto the bus in case someone like doesn't show up.
Mm-hmm.
Like everywhere I travel, like at airports, at train stations, so many people are at an airport or a train station on standby.
I don't understand how that happens. I've never had to be on standby in my life.
The only time I was ever on standby was when
American
Airlines, like, all their staff went on strike and they canceled every flight.
Yeah, the only time I can imagine this happening is literally if my flight got canceled, in which case I would go to the counter and be like, look, my flight was canceled. I gave you fucking money. You're going to fly me where I want to go. When is that going to happen? And they would tell me, if they said, I don't know, I would go to a hotel immediately.
Yep.
And then wait and make phone calls when appropriate, etc. until I
we had Scott. That is the privilege of someone who has money and is willing to suffer any amount of financial
I'm going to make them pay for that hotel room too.
Yep.
I'm not paying for that shit.
And then follow it up with righteous indignation.
Yes, exactly. So I mean, there's no reason for me to stand at the airport on standby for anything. I guess there could be some emergency where like I just have to get to Saskatchewan like today, and then there's no way I can buy it. I just gotta go to the airport and hope.
You know what I would do? If you can't fly and like standby's not out, I'm the kind of person who'll just rent a car and drive right out of the airport.
We could do that.
Yeah, I did
How
that
long
once or
would it
twice
take
in my
to get
life.
to Saskatchewan?
From here,
Yeah,
if we drove in shifts, we could be there. And if I had to guess,
2 or 3 days.
no, we could do it faster than that.
But if I need to be there
Scott,
today,
I drove. It takes 2 days to drive from Detroit to like the middle of Florida. If you drive in shifts and with some sleeping. So we could totally get to Saskatchewan inside of 2 days if we drove in shifts and never
But
stopped.
there's mad bad weather right now, and it's Canada.
Yeah, Canada knows how to deal with bad weather. I grew up in Michigan. I can drive in bad weather. It's fine.
What car are we gonna rent?
A car that has snow chains in the trunk.
It better.
Do you know how to put snow chains on?
I know how to Google and watch a YouTube video showing me how to do it.
So it's funny because you brought up Bolt Bus and like I said, Megabus and all these things. There's another bus like that. In fact, I'm riding one on Saturday, Urban Sherpa. In New York, I can pay somebody like $60 and they will at 6 a.m. pick
You
me up.
pay $60 for that? Now I don't feel bad about things I've wasted $60 on.
They pick me up in Times Square, drive me to Hunter Mountain and drop me off at the ski mountain. and then at 4:30 p.m. drive me back to Times Square and drop me off.
There's no white privilege bus like a bus going to a ski resort
So
from New York City.
this is what I'm getting at. New York's like Bolt Bus, kind of like JetBlue, all these things, they exist because of New York. They don't exist anywhere else.
I'm sure they exist somewhere else.
Most cities do not have the kinds of buses that we have access to here. Like, if you want to take a bus to somewhere outside of New York that isn't serviced by like Bolt Bus, one, almost no one goes there, and two, you're on fucking Peter Pan, and that bus is just a 8-hour nightmare.
Yeah. Something else, though, I think other countries, some of them, especially the nice ones, have much better buses than we have.
Yes, they do. That is true.
If we go to like Asia's or Europe's or places like that, I'm sure that they have buses that are like they go on
They
schedule.
do. We're just talking about American buses.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of those are just indicative of the you can see how just talking about one thing, the bus, we're really just talking about the problems of America.
Yep.
And they just all appear on the bus.
But like, here's to get more, because I was talking about like the privilege of these buses networks we have in New York. Our friends, like, we go to conventions and we take Bolt Bus to a lot of the conventions we go to, because it's just like it goes.
It's the best way.
It'll
we
pick
can
us
get
up
there.
in New York and go directly to like the convention center.
The
Like,
bus that goes to Boston is pretty much a few blocks away from PAX East.
yes.
You can walk. It's so great.
Our friends are all like, "Oh, how you guys getting to PAX?" And for them, taking a bus is a nightmare because Bolt Bus doesn't go direct from where they live to Boston.
Yeah, we live in New York City. They live like even if you live in White Plains, pretty close to New York City, you're gonna come to New York City on Metro North and then take. It's like and there's no transportation directly from there to.
So instead, like pretty much for all of them, driving is the best option. Except then they got to park, and park is like $60 a day for like
in
a
Boston,
week.
yeah, good luck with that.
$60 a day is a pretty low end price to park anywhere
Meanwhile,
near.
the bus cost me like possibly $1 each way if I buy my ticket early enough.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I often,
usually like $12 each way.
yeah, exactly.
So
Buses work like there's buses and all these mass transit options related to buses that we have here don't exist in most of the rest of New York because there is such a demand for mass transit. But at the same time, we won't build it. And as a result, buses, for the vast majority of humans who will ever ride them who don't live in New York City, fucking nightmares.
Yep.
Like, if my only option is a bus, I either won't go or I'll rent a car most of the time.
Yeah, in most of the country, right? Pretty much anywhere you live in the United States, like I don't think there's been a civilized place I've lived where there isn't actually like a bus system. It's like there's no other public transportation usually except outside of major cities. But even near my parents' house or, out in all kinds of middle of nowhere places, there's still some sort of bus system and some sort of bus stops.
But like, remember we lived in Rochester, right? Remember when we didn't have a car as freshmen and we wanted to buy groceries?
Rochester doesn't have a subway or anything, but they have buses.
Yeah, it would take us half a day to buy groceries by using that bus.
Mm-hmm.
That bus took for fucking ever, and then we had to carry all our groceries on the bus. It was awful.
But we did a lot.
Yeah, and it sucked.
But Wegmans was nice.
And then, as soon as we were sophomores, I had a car. I drove everyone we knew to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Everyone, repeatedly. Me driving people around was how I afforded gas.
Mm-hmm.
So, but beyond that, our friend Luke, I remember he was like, the bus is fine. You don't need to own a car in Rochester. And then one day I was like, Luke, how long does it take you to get to work? How long does it actually take you door to door? And he was like, like an hour and a half. It's not that bad. And one, he was lying. It actually took like 2.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And two, it sucked and he hated it, but he couldn't admit to it because he already committed to this buses are okay position.
And if you used a car to make that trip, it was like 15 minutes.
Yeah. If there's traffic, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
If there's
you could pretty much cross all of Rochester in like a half hour.
Yeah, like it took us half a day to do grocery shopping. I could drive to the Wegmans and back, including grocery shopping.
10, 15 minutes?
Including the grocery shopping, 45 minutes.
Maybe. Oh, how many groceries you getting? I mean, like
a
I'm
week's
talking
worth?
like you're getting an orangey and running out. So that
Getting an orgy running out, I would just drive to... Actually, I'd still go to the Wegmans.
The Wegmans you went to didn't have any orangey.
Yeah, that's a different Wegmans. And that usually took all night. and then again in the morning.
I think the show's over.
Yeah, I think it is. has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geeknights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.
I hate the Sky Dome and the CN Tower too. I hate Nathan Phillips Square and the Ontario Zoo. The rent's too high, the air's unclean, the beaches are dirty and the people are mean, and the women are big and the men are dumb, and the children are loopy because they live in a slum. The water is polluted and the mayor's a dork. They dress real bad and they think they're New York and Toronto.